Hey guys, tonight we begin with something grimy, gritty, and guaranteed to make your mattress feel like a throne. We're going deep, literally, into the nightmare job that was being a medieval miner. Imagine waking up before dawn, your breath already clouding in the chill air of a one-room shack, the sound of someone retching outside blending with the muffled clang of iron striking rock from the day shift already underway. The walls of your cottage are damp, your breakfast is a dry crust of bread, and your water smells like it's flirting with dysentery. Welcome to your morning routine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You swing your legs over the straw-stuffed bedding and stretch your aching spine, which, by now, curves slightly to the left from years of crouching in tunnels built for hobbits. The room smells of mold, old wool, and something sour you stop trying to identify. You pull on your coarse wool tunic, your stiff leather apron, and your boots, cracked, scuffed, and soaked from yesterday's shift in the lower shaft. One boot squelches when you tie it. Not ideal. Outside, the early sky is a steel-grey smear. There's no sun, just a brooding cloud cover that looks like it's thinking about spitting on you. Again. You nod to the other miners, all with the same 1,000-yard stare and soot-shadowed faces. There's no cheer, no small talk, just the shuffle of resignation and the stink of survival. You pass the church on the way down the hill. A monk stands at the door offering blessings for a silver piece. You don't stop. First, you're broke. Second, you'd rather have a backup candle than divine protection. The mine looms ahead, its wooden frame groaning in the wind, a black moor in the hillside that seems to whisper your name like a bad ex. The overseer is already there, a meat-faced man with a permanent sneer and a walking stick he doesn't need but enjoys brandishing. He checks your name off a list nailed to the tunnel's entry post. If your name isn't called by sunset, he'll just scribble "lost" and hire someone else tomorrow. The entrance smells like wet stone and scorched oil. You take a breath, your last lungful of surface air until noon, and descend. There's no elevator. No pulley cart. You climb down slippery wooden rungs bolted into the shaft wall. Below you, the pit groans like it's alive. Your candle flickers, casting distorted shadows against the rock. Every miner carries a candle on a hat clamp or holds it in a cracked lantern, because natural light? That's a luxury reserved for people not trying to survive on 6 pence a week. The air gets thicker the deeper you go. Not warmer, just heavier. You can taste the minerals, the dust, the centuries of men who never came back up. And of course, the rot. Always the rot. Somewhere below, a collapsed tunnel still holds the remains of old Martin, whose arm was never recovered. They say the rats got it first. You finally reach your post, a small, cramped chamber no bigger than a closet. The ceiling is low, the walls are slick, and you swear something moved in the shadows. You and your two comrades start working. Hammer. Chisel. Crack. Flake. Repeat. Hours pass like years. Your hands go numb, your shoulders ache, and you can't tell if you're sweating or if the mine itself is weeping on you. Maybe both. Midway through your shift, the first ominous creak echoes down the corridor. Everyone freezes. You hold your breath. nothing follows. Maybe it was just the wood settling. Or maybe the ceiling is thinking about joining you for lunch. Lunch, by the way, is a handful of dried peas and a strip of salted pork tough enough to cut glass. You gnaw it like a desperate dog and wash it down with lukewarm beer, because the water down here is, well, let's just say the last guy who drank it hasn't blinked in 2 weeks. As the hours drag, your candle begins to burn low. That little pool of flame is the only thing standing between you and complete darkness. You glance at your spare, hoping it lasts. Miners are known to share wax or even chew candle stubs to stay sane. One guy once tried to eat his own boot just to escape the tunnel with an injury. Historians still argue whether he actually planned it or was just very, very hungry. Eventually, a bell echoes faintly down the corridor. Shift change. You stumble back toward the ladder, joints locking, mind fuzzy, eyes blinking in confusion at the first shaft of daylight that pierces the mind's entrance like a miracle. You made it. For now. The ladder groans beneath your weight as you drag your body back into the world above. Your limbs shake from the climb, your lungs wheeze like a bellows missing half its parts, and your knees? Let's just say they've been threatening a formal complaint since you turned 20. The first blast of outside air hits your face like a slap, bracing, sharp, and laced with wood smoke from a distant cottage fire. It smells alive up here. Damp moss, muddy pigs, and burned bread, a strangely comforting perfume compared to what you just crawled out of. You shuffle toward the tool shed to turn in your gear, a battered hammer and a bent chisel you've been nursing for 3 years like a beloved but irritable pet. The overseer nods, satisfied you're not dead, and scratches something in his ledger. He doesn't ask how you are. You don't ask what he's writing. Trust in a medieval mine is like fresh air, rumored, rarely seen. You hear coughing behind you, deep, wet, unmistakably sick. That's Thomas, the one who passed out last week from gas inhalation. He's back today because rest days are for people who own land, not for men who scrape their wages out of rock. His face is the color of unbaked dough, and he's leaving bits of lung on the grass, but hey, at least he's upright. You head home, muscles screaming, feet dragging, and back feeling like it's been professionally rearranged by a sadistic blacksmith. The path is slick with rain, and your boots squish with each step like they're plotting your downfall. At one point, you nearly fall face first into a puddle the size of Normandy, only saved by a sharp stab of pain from your hip. You mutter thanks to the pain. It may be brutal, but at least it keeps you vertical. Your cottage appears through the trees, hunched and wheezing like the rest of you. The roof leaks, the walls bow slightly inward, and the door creaks in protest when you push it open. Inside, the fire's gone cold, and your wife left a crust of barley bread wrapped in a damp cloth. She's probably at the village well, arguing over whose turn it is to carry buckets that weigh more than hope. You collapse onto a wooden stool that has one leg shorter than the others, so you rock slightly forward with every breath. There's no beer tonight, no stew, just the bread and a few pickled onions in a jar that smells like punishment. You chew slowly, savoring every bite like it's a royal feast. Funny how deprivation sharpens your appreciation for even the saddest of meals. After eating, you strip off your tunic, revealing bruises, blisters, and a layer of grime thick enough to sprout moss. You dunk a cloth in a bucket of murky water and wipe your arms. The water turns black immediately. Your skin doesn't get clean. It just gets slightly less haunted. You think about sleep, but you're not there yet. not with your heart pounding like a blacksmith's hammer from hours of stale air and physical strain. So you sit by the cold hearth, listening to the wind rattle the shutters and the distant creak of the mine's entrance, like it's calling you back. You remember hearing, as a child, that miners were brave heroes, that they fetched riches from the earth. Silver, copper, even gold if you were lucky. They forgot to mention the part about dying at 30, coughing up stones, or being crushed by your ceiling. Historians still argue whether miners of your era were considered free men or just a variation of indentured laborers. Spoiler alert, it didn't matter when the outcome was the same: work, suffer, repeat. You stretch out on your straw bed, which crunches under your weight like a sack of kindling. You stare at the ceiling, mold spots forming constellations, and try to remember a time your body didn't ache. Your fingers twitch from phantom hammer strikes. Your eyelids drift downward, then flutter back open when you hear a rat scurry near the wall. You name him Gerald. He's the most consistent company you've had all week. Just as you finally start to drift, there's a knock at the door. You groan. It's your neighbor, Willem, fresh out of the mine. His sleeve is tied around one arm, which is oozing something yellowish and bad-tempered. Tunnel shift gave in, he mutters. Need help pulling Jacob out. You want to say no. You want to stay in bed. You want to cry. But instead, you rise, pull on your boots, and grab your lantern. Because that's the rule: when the mine takes someone, you go after them. Not because you're noble. Because someday, someone will have to do it for you. The lantern's flame flickers as you follow Willem down the trail, its tiny glow bouncing off the rain-slick stones like a warning. The night is thick with mist, clinging to your skin and whispering every foul memory you tried to leave behind. You hear nothing but the squelch of boots, the distant hoot of an owl probably laughing at you, and Willem's labored breathing, half from the hill, half from shock. Back at the mine, a few more figures have gathered, flickering silhouettes against the black pit's yawning mouth. They're the after-hours crew, men too desperate or too haunted to sleep. The overseer is here too, chewing on a piece of bark with the calm of a man who won't be doing the digging. He gives a sharp nod and gestures toward the shaft. No words. Just that look. Go. Now. You descend again, though your legs plead otherwise. The ladder's rungs feel slipperier than ever, like they're thinking about betrayal. At the bottom, the air's already changed, heavier, hotter. You can feel it pressing against your ribs, a silent partner in this rescue mission. Jacob was working the side tunnel. It's narrow, almost vertical, and prone to mood swings, mostly angry ones. He was clearing debris when the support beam gave out. You step into the tunnel, your shoulders brushing the walls, the roof just inches above your bowed head. The scent hits first. Earth. Dust. And something metallic, like the iron tang of blood. You push forward. A few yards in, the collapse reveals itself. A tangled mess of splintered wood, crumbled rock, and one visible boot sticking out from the rubble like a grotesque invitation. You and Willem get to work. Slowly, carefully, you peel away the stones, whispering apologies to Jacob as if he can hear you. Maybe he can. Maybe he's already slipping past the veil, muttering curses at the irony of dying under a mountain he never wanted to climb. 2 hours pass. Maybe 3. Your hands are raw, your shoulders scream, and your candle threatens to sputter out. But then, movement. A faint groan from beneath the debris. "He's alive," Willem gasps, eyes wide. With renewed urgency, you dig faster. When you finally free Jacob's upper body, his face is pale, his eyes unfocused, but he's breathing. Victory, in a mine, comes quiet and broken. You rig a makeshift stretcher out of rope and 2 boards. Carrying him back up the shaft feels like hauling a bag of wet boulders, but you don't stop. Every minute counts. At the top, the air tastes like a miracle. Jacob's wife rushes over, sobbing as she touches his face. You step back, wipe your hands on your shirt, and try to remember what sleep felt like. You don't go straight home. You sit on a nearby stump and stare at the mine. That monstrous hole has taken more friends than you can count. It's a hungry god, demanding sacrifice. And you? You're the priest, shovel in hand. In the following days, Jacob survives, but he won't work again. His legs mangled beyond repair, and the village healer does her best with herbs, prayers, and a bone saw that looks like it last cut bread. There's talk of giving Jacob's position to his son, Milo. He's 10, maybe 11, already strong for his age. The idea makes your stomach twist, but nobody says no. Not here. You see it often, boys with shoulders too narrow for their pickaxes, eyes too wide for the darkness. They work the same shifts, breathe the same fumes, break under the same weight. Childhood isn't a phase in the mines. It's a liability. Historians still argue whether child labor was seen as cruel or simply necessary for survival. Let's just say the mine never cared about birthdays. One morning, you watch Milo descend the shaft for the first time, his father's helmet barely balanced on his head. You want to stop him. To say something noble, wise, maybe even kind. But all that comes out is a horse, don't lose your candle. That day, you work harder. Faster. As if moving more rock will somehow keep Milo safe. It won't, of course. But the lie gets you through the shift. That, and the promise of a mug of stale beer at the tavern, the one luxury that numbs the guilt, if only for a while. When your shift ends, you sit by the fire in your cottage, feet in a basin of vinegar to soothe the swelling, while your wife mends a shirt that's more whole than cloth. You glance at her fingers, pricked and calloused, and wonder who's got the worst deal, you with the mine, or her with endless laundry, children, and the fear you won't come home tomorrow. Outside, a storm begins. Rain hammers the roof, thunder rattles the windows. You close your eyes, grateful that tonight, for once, you're not trapped beneath the earth. You wake to the sound of your own teeth chattering. The fire went out sometime in the night, and now the room feels like it's been annexed by the North Sea. Your limbs ache in that old, familiar way, like each joint's been greased with regret and sawdust. You pull your threadbare blanket tighter, but it does as much good as whispering at a bear. Outside, the village groans to life. Roosters crow with a level of confidence they absolutely haven't earned, and from somewhere nearby, someone's already shouting about missing boots. You drag yourself upright, muscles tight, and stare at your swollen feet. The vinegar soak helped, about as much as trying to fight a bear with a spoon. Breakfast is a lump of something grey your wife insists is boiled oats, though you suspect it's revenge for not fetching firewood yesterday. Still, you eat it. Because calories, in your life, are sacred. They don't come often, and when they do, you thank the heavens, even if they taste like soggy burlap. As you step out into the village square, the air cuts like a blade. The fog hangs thick, hugging the ground like it's trying to smother it. Your breath clouds in front of you, swirling like the ghosts of miners past. The path to the mine is a muddy maze of boot prints and broken dreams. Each step feels heavier than the last, like the ground itself is judging your life choices. Today's shift is deeper, past the lower drift, into what they charmingly call the lungs. Not because the air is good, no, quite the opposite. It's the part of the mine where the air tries to kill you in subtle, creative ways. You've heard stories about men dropping mid-swing, candle flames going blue and then dark, followed by silence. The kind of silence that doesn't end with snoring. That ends with burial. You descend with your usual tools, a hammer, chisel, a candle stub barely taller than your thumb, and a pouch of something they claim is cheese. It isn't. Not unless cheese has started resembling chalk and resentment. As you enter the lungs, the air changes. It's thick, sour. Every breath tastes like someone boiled sulfur and let it rot. The walls sweat more than you do, and the ceiling droops ominously. You work in near silence with two others, chipping at a stubborn vein of copper while trying not to think about how much earth lies above your head. Your candle sputters once, twice, then steadies. For now, you eye the small wooden beam holding up the tunnel's ceiling, bent, cracked, and clearly just hanging on out of spite. Your fellow miner, Geraint, mutters something about the hiss. You freeze. That sound, like escaping gas, barely audible over your own heartbeat. Some mines suffer from FIDAMP, methane pockets that collect silently and explode with even a spark. Others harbor black damp, carbon dioxide that suffocates. Either way, if the hiss grows louder, you'll either burn or choke. Delightful options. But nothing happens. Just the hiss, the drip of condensation, and the occasional distant thunk of someone else's pickaxe. You get back to work, cautiously, every strike of your hammer feeling like an invitation to disaster. You pause once to sip water from your flask. It's metallic, slightly green, and lukewarm. You pretend it's soup. Across from you, Geraint scratches his head and mutters about dreams he's been having, tunnels full of bones, a voice calling him by name. You laugh nervously, but your skin prickles. Down here, superstition walks beside every man. Whispers about spirits, about miners who dug too deep and never came back whole. Historians still debate whether these tales were metaphor or coping mechanism. Either way, they stick with you. By midday, your fingers are blistered and your back has gone from ache to alarm. You lean against the wall, just for a moment, when the rumble starts. It's faint at first. A suggestion of movement. Then louder. Stones tremble, dust rains from the ceiling, and a wooden beam groans like it's giving up the will to exist. You don't think. You just run. You and Geraint scramble backward as a cascade of rubble crashes behind you. Your candle flies from your hand, extinguished mid-arc, darkness slams down like a door. You gasp, trying to orient yourself. You're not crushed. That's good. Probably. But the tunnel is sealed behind you, and ahead? Pitch black. Geraint fumbles with his flint, managing to relight your candle. The flame sputters weakly, revealing just enough to see the collapsed mess where your exit used to be. No way through. Not without tools. Not without help. You sit down on a dry patch of ground, breathing hard. Your ears ring with the echo of falling rock. Geraint curses softly. You know what comes next. You wait. Wait for the others to dig you out, if they notice the collapse. If they can reach you. If the air doesn't turn foul. This isn't the first time you've been trapped. But it's the first time with Geraint, and his eyes are wide, his breath too fast. Panic creeping in. You try to steady him with a joke, something about how the mind just wanted a cuddle. He doesn't laugh, but he stops shaking. Hours pass. The candle burns low. You listen for sounds. Picks. Voices. Anything. And eventually, a tap. Distant. Faint. Hope. Rescue is on its way. You don't cry. Not yet. You'll save that for when you see daylight again. The tapping grows louder, more rhythmic. It's coming from the other side of the collapse, a steady tick-tick-tick like the heartbeat of salvation. You and Geraint exchange a look, wide eyes, equal parts fear and relief, and begin shouting. Not words, not really. Just sounds. Raw-throated proof of life. After an agonizing pause, you hear voices. Muffled. Human. Glorious. Then the clinking of picks and the low murmur of coordination. Someone is digging toward you. The air grows worse. Not toxic yet, but staler by the second. Geraint's candle is half its original size, barely casting enough light to see his soot-smeared face. You try to stay awake, to breathe evenly. You focus on the rhythm of the rescue team. They're moving fast. That's good. You joke that if they hurry, you'll share your last chunk of cheese. Geraint pretends to laugh. Neither of you actually wants it. When the first crack of light pierces the rubble, it feels like watching the moon rise after years of darkness. A hand reaches through, followed by a chisel, and within minutes, a gap wide enough for a man appears. You crawl through it on hands and knees, blinking into the torchlight like a mole dragged into morning. On the surface, the sky has shifted from grey to bruised pink. Dusk. You've been underground nearly 12 hours. Your legs threaten to fold, but someone catches you. You hear Geraint behind you, cursing like he's swearing his way back to life. The overseer claps your shoulder, hard enough to dislodge a lung. Still breathing, he says with a grin that contains no warmth. You want to punch him. You also want to sleep for a week. You do neither. Instead, you hobble toward home, the villagers parting for you like you've returned from war. Which, in a way, you have. A war against the earth, fought with hammers and hope. Your wife meets you at the door. No words. Just a look that says she feared the worst, again, and now she has to fear it all over tomorrow. You collapse into your chair and eat whatever she puts in front of you. You don't taste it. You barely chew. You're just glad it's warm and solid and not a hallucination born of gas fumes and desperation. Later that night, as you lie in bed, your body a map of bruises and swelling, you stare at the rafters and wonder if it's worth it. The mind gives nothing freely. It takes your time, your health, your friends. It nearly took your life today. And for what? A few coins. Enough to keep your family fed, maybe, if the baker isn't in a mood. But then you hear the soft breath of your wife beside you, the rustle of your youngest in the cradle, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. And you know the answer. It's not fair. It's not just. But it's the only thing you've got. You dream, briefly, of sunlit fields, of air that doesn't taste like rust and old bones, of laughter not followed by coughing. But then your mind pulls you back into the mine. Always the mine. A hallway that never ends. A candle that won't light. And footsteps that follow you, closer and closer. You wake before dawn. Again. The morning is quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your ears strain for the sound of doom. You dress without thinking, your hands moving on autopilot. Your boots are still damp. Your back still burns. Your mind still replays the collapse in sickening detail. At the shaft entrance, a new face joins the line. A boy, probably 15, with clear skin and a nervous grin. First day, he says, like it's a badge of honor. You nod. You don't tell him anything. He'll learn soon enough. The ladder creaks beneath your weight. Again. This time, you head into a different corridor. The dry vein, as they call it. Less water, more dust. It's considered safer, which is a lie, but a comforting one. The rock here is brittle, which sounds easier until a ceiling falls on your head. Your job today is to expand a narrow shaft, essentially making a mouse hole bigger using tools designed before anyone thought about worker safety. The space is so tight you have to lie on your side to swing your pick. Each blow sends a cloud of dust into your face. You tie a rag over your mouth, but it doesn't help. You'll be coughing rocks for days. Your candle flickers. The air here is bad. Not deadly, just enough to make your chest feel like it's been wrapped in wool. You shift position, driving the pick harder. The rock shatters, revealing a glint of metal. Silver. Just a sliver, like a thread sewn through the stone. You call it out, and the overseer appears like a summoned demon, eyes gleaming. He marks the wall with chalk and shoves you aside. Keep digging, he says, and suddenly you're not just a miner. You're a mule tied to a gold cart. You work twice as hard for the rest of the day, the promise of silver driving the overseer's whip hand. You try not to think about what will happen to that silver. It'll be sent to the Lord's coffers, melted into coins you'll never see, traded for wine and silk you'll never touch. But still, it matters. Because maybe, if enough silver is pulled from the earth, they'll pay for a new beam. A stronger rope. A day off. You cling to that hope like a lifeline. That night, you sleep a little deeper. Just a little. The next morning breaks with a sunrise that feels more like a false promise than a blessing. The sky is clear, a rare mercy, and yet your bones ache with the certainty that the day will be anything but kind. You stretch on your stool, wincing as something in your spine makes a noise like snapping twigs. Your wife hands you a mug of something warm, maybe tea, maybe boiled weeds masquerading as it. You drink anyway. Word has spread. Silver. Just the mention of it is enough to spark excitement among the villagers. Not for themselves, no one expects to touch it, but for what it might mean. Repairs, wages paid on time, maybe even a new wheel for the village cart. It's hope, thin and slippery, but still hope. At the mine, the overseer is grinning. A rare and terrifying sight. He's ordered more men into the shaft today, double crew, double pace. Strike while it's hot, he bellows, though the mine, of course, is always cold. You're back in the dry vein. The sliver of silver has widened overnight, like a vein pulsing open. You and 5 others work in relay, chipping, clearing, reinforcing. The heat from body after body builds up fast in the narrow space. Soon it's hard to breathe, and the air smells like iron and sweat-soaked wool. Your pick strikes something hard. Not stone. Not metal. Bone. You freeze, heart knocking against your ribs. The others stop too, their breaths harsh and sudden. Carefully, you brush away the rock. A skull stares back, cracked but intact, teeth bared in a grin that knows something you don't. The remains are old, dry, sunken, wrapped in shreds of what used to be clothing. A collapsed miner, long forgotten. Nobody speaks. You all know the rules. When the mine gives you bones, you move them aside. Say a quiet prayer. And dig around. Time is silver, and silver doesn't wait for funerals. You relocate the remains into a shallow corner niche, marking it with a few stones and a whispered, "Sorry, mate." Geraint crosses himself. Someone else spits into the dirt. Historians still argue whether these casual burials were out of necessity or callousness. Probably both. When you live on borrowed time, respect becomes a luxury. By midday, the air quality in the tunnel has deteriorated. Your candle burns dull orange. Your lungs feel heavier. The overseer sends down a fresh load of supplies, timber, fresh rope, and, miraculously, a goatskin of vinegar to douse your cloth masks. It helps. A little. The silver vein grows. It branches like lightning across the wall, weaving through layers of rock like nature's cruel joke. Every chip of stone exposes more. The overseer drools like a man who just inherited a kingdom. He doubles the pace. No brakes. No water unless you sneak it. The mine hums with urgency. You notice the younger miners faltering. Milo, especially. His hands blistered, eyes glassy. You pull him aside, give him your water flask. He drinks like it's holy. Thanks, he whispers, and gets back to work. You watch him go and feel a weight you can't shake, like you've just passed on a curse. Late in the day, a new sound starts. Faint, rhythmic. Drip. 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 Water. From above. You check the ceiling. Moisture beads between the cracks. You call out to the overseer, who grunts and tells you to wedge in more timber. Classic fix, when in doubt, throw wood at it. You do it anyway. Because arguing gets you nowhere but bruised. You wedge in the timber, then stack rocks beneath to stabilize the beam. It groans but holds. You step back, squint at it, and decide it's probably fine. Which is about the highest level of certainty anyone ever reaches down here. As the shift ends, you climb out exhausted, sweat plastering your tunic to your back. The setting sun bathes the mine in gold, ironic for a place that almost killed you. Again. The overseer slaps a silver coin into your palm. Bonus, he says. You stare at it. It's real. Shiny. Cold. Worth more than a week's meals. It could buy your son a pair of shoes that don't leak. It could buy your wife a jar of honey, a rare gift. It could vanish in a heartbeat if the tax collector comes early. Still, you hold it tight all the way home. That night, the tavern is louder than usual. Miners drinking on the overseer's tab, a bribe to keep the pace going. You sit at the edge of the room, nursing a weak ale, watching the others laugh. You want to join in, but your body is too sore and your mind too full. Old Jacob is there, limping but alive. He raises his cup to you. You nod. Geraint stumbles by and sings something incomprehensible. Milo is asleep at a table, curled around a hunk of bread. Back home, you tuck the silver coin into a crack in the wall. Hidden. Safe. Maybe it'll grow into something better. Maybe it won't. Your wife's asleep already, curled on the straw mattress, her face peaceful in the flickering light. You lie beside her and stare at the ceiling. You think about the bones, the silver, the boy, the water, and you wonder what the mine will want tomorrow. Morning hits your face like a thrown shovel. You groan and roll over, the straw mattress crunching beneath you like a nest of broken twigs. Every muscle in your body has lodged a formal complaint, and your lower back has submitted its resignation entirely. But there's no time to negotiate with your skeleton. The mind calls. Breakfast is half a stale onion and something that might have been a turnip once in a past life. You choke it down like a penance and don't bother complaining. Your wife just arches one eyebrow, and that's enough to remind you who keeps the fire lit. At the mine, the air buzzes. The silver strike has brought more than just miners. Merchants are sniffing around, nobles in dusty cloaks have begun appearing at the edge of the works, and the overseer now walks around like he owns the earth's crust. He doesn't, of course. The church does. Yes, the church. A curious landlord. The bishop's steward shows up today with a scroll, a seal, and a smile slicker than fresh lard. He reads a proclamation in a voice that sounds like someone polishing their own ego. Henceforth, 1/10 of all findings shall be dedicated to the glory of God. Translation: the church just increased its cut. You mutter something impolite. Geraint snorts. The steward doesn't care. He's already waddling off, probably to bless a pig before taxes. The shaft is slick today. Rain last night has turned the upper passages into sludge slides. You almost slip twice on the way down, catching yourself on ropes that feel older than sin. Once inside, you're greeted by a strange sound. Silence. No picks, no voices. Just a low hum. The kind that crawls up your spine and taps your brain like, hey, something's wrong. You round the corner and find the crew clustered around the wall near the silver vein. It's not excitement. It's fear. A crack has appeared, long, jagged, creeping across the ceiling like a spider web drawn by an angry god. The beam you wedged yesterday groans again, louder this time. Geraint whispers, "That's not holding. Not anymore." The overseer arrives, sees the crack, and does what any brave leader would, shrugs. "Get to work," he barks. "Reinforce it." You and the others exchange looks. You've seen that crack before. Not this exact one, but its brothers. In collapsed tunnels. Over graves. In nightmares. Still, you obey. Because what choice do you have? You fetch more timber. Sawdust fills the air. The support frame is reinforced, wedged, lashed, prayed over, and patted like a sick mule. It holds. Barely. The overseer grunts his approval and leaves. You return to digging. The rest of the shift drips by like molasses down a cold wall. Each swing of your pick is met with paranoia. Is that creek new? Did that dust just fall on its own? You blink sweat out of your eyes and try to focus. Just the rock. Just the metal. By midday, you find something strange embedded in the stone, an old iron emblem, rusted and worn, shaped like a dragon eating its tail. A relic. A talisman? Geraint thinks it's cursed. You think it's decorative, probably from an old mine collapse. Historians still argue what these symbols meant: protection, danger, or just minor graffiti with extra flair. You pocket it anyway. That afternoon, the mine decides to remind you who's in charge. The warning comes not as a rumble, but as a sudden snap. A support beam gives with a wooden shriek that could wake the dead. You drop your tools and run. The tunnel behind you collapses with a thunderous roar, a wall of dust chasing you like a hungry beast. You fall forward, roll, slam into a stone outcropping, and everything goes black. When you wake, you're coughing dust and bleeding from your forehead. You're not alone. Geraint's beside you, also dazed, looking like he's been hugged by a mountain. Others groan nearby. But you're alive. That's your first thought. The second, how long until it happens again? Back on the surface, medics work with what they have: rags, boiled wine, and a prayer. You sit under a tree, head wrapped like a mummy, staring into the distance while someone counts the injured. One man didn't make it. Crushed under the rock fall. His name was Lionel. Quiet, kind, always humming old drinking songs. You realize, with a sick twist, that you'll have to tell his wife. The overseer brushes the dirt off his tunic and says, "Accidents happen." He doesn't meet your eyes. That evening, the church bell tolls. Not for a service. For a funeral. You attend in silence, standing at the edge of the graveyard with the other miners, hats in hand, dirt still under your nails. The priest mumbles a blessing, the widow weeps, and the wind carries the scent of burning tallow candles. Afterward, you go home, drop into your chair, and say nothing for a long time. Your wife finally speaks. "Will you go back?" You look at your hands. Blistered. Scabbed. Still shaking. You nod. Yes. Because you must. The next day arrives wrapped in a fog so thick you could bottle it and sell it as soup. You shuffle out of bed feeling like a centuries-old tree, stiff, groaning, and missing a few key branches. Your bandaged head pulses with every heartbeat, a reminder from the mine that you're never really off duty. You avoid your wife's eyes as you lace up your boots. She's been silent all morning, moving through the cottage with the quiet precision of someone who's memorized the steps of worry. She doesn't stop you. She never does. But every glance she doesn't give you feels like a scream in disguise. The path to the mine is unusually quiet. Fewer footsteps. Fewer voices. Words gotten around about yesterday's collapse. Miners are superstitious folk, wise enough to know when the earth is whispering warnings. Still, the silver's not going to dig itself, and so here you are. Today's job isn't in the collapsed tunnel, thank the saints. You're assigned to a higher drift, near the old iron vein. It's narrower, less active, and supposedly safer. Of course, in mining, safer just means slightly slower to kill you. Your crewmates today are a mixed bunch. Geraint's been replaced with Olaf, a broad-shouldered man who talks like he's chewing gravel. Then there's Beat, a lanky, quiet lad who used to be a blacksmith's apprentice until the forge burned down. No one talks about that. The old iron shaft creaks like a haunted ship. It smells of rust, mold, and resignation. Your job is to widen a secondary chute, reinforcing it with stone walls and wooden crossbeams scavenged from a collapsed corridor nearby. Nothing says safety like recycled supports from a known death trap. You set to work. Hammer, chisel, brace. The rhythm sets in, numbing your thoughts. You find yourself humming an old tune, something your mother used to sing before bed. It used to be comforting. Now it's just something to fill the void. Around midday, Olaf uncovers something odd in the rock, a carved niche hidden behind a slab of loose shale. Inside it, a small wooden box, blackened with age and sealed with a lead stamp. Beat steps back. Relics, he mutters, crossing himself. Olaf pries it open. Inside is a tangle of metal charms, rusted coins, a bone pendant, and a wax seal bearing a symbol none of you recognize. You all stare at it like it might bite. Superstition thickens the air like dust. These kinds of finds are rare but not unheard of. Some say they're offerings. Others say they're warnings. Historians still argue whether medieval miners practiced ritual offerings to appease the spirits of the earth, or just to mess with future generations. Olaf pockets the coin, muttering something about luck. You wish him well, but you make a mental note to stay uphill from him for the rest of the week. Later, Beat asks if you believe in mine spirits. You shrug. Doesn't matter if I do. The mine believes in us. That night, back at home, you finally speak to your wife. You tell her about Lionel, about the coin, about Olaf's idiotic grin. She listens, then reaches beneath the bed and pulls out a bundle. Inside, your father's mining journal. You'd forgotten she kept it. The leather's cracked, the ink faded, but the pages are full of notes, warnings, crude sketches. He recorded everything. Gas pockets, dead ends, the best stones for supports. He even sketched out tunnels that haven't existed in decades. You read late into the night. One entry catches your eye: avoid southern drift. Voices heard after collapse. Not echoes. You reread it 3 times. You don't sleep well. The following morning, you arrive early. You want to explore the southern drift before the overseer signs your post. It's been sealed off for years, but the entrance is still there, marked with an old plank and a rusted chain. You duck under it and light your lantern. The tunnel beyond feels colder. The air tastes stale, like forgotten stories. As you walk, the darkness thickens, not just from the lack of light, but from something heavier. The silence here isn't quiet. It's listening. You find nothing unusual at first. Just old supports, half collapsed, and tools left behind by someone in a hurry. Then, deeper in, you come to a chamber where the walls shine, not with silver, but with moisture reflecting your lantern. And there, scratched into the stone in shaky lines, we hear them when the rocks breathe. You touch the words. Fresh. Or at least, not centuries old. A rock falls somewhere nearby. You spin, heart pounding, but see nothing. Still, you retreat. Fast. Whatever story this place wants to tell, you're not ready to hear it yet. Back at the surface, the sun feels wrong. Too bright. Too loud. You sign on for your usual shift and keep your mouth shut. Not because you're scared. Because now you're listening too. You return home from the mine with your ears still ringing, not from a collapse, not from shouting, but from that low, crawling silence you brought back with you from the southern drift. The kind that follows you like a shadow too stubborn to stay on the ground. Your wife watches you over her stitching. You offer a weak smile. She doesn't buy it. Dinner is barley stew, watery and spiced with fatigue. You chew slowly, grateful for the warmth but too distracted to taste much. The journal sits by your side, open to that same passage. We hear them when the rocks breathe. Your fingers trace the handwriting, your father's looping script as familiar as your own. Sleep, when it comes, is twitchy. You dream of tunnels that never end, of walls that pulse like lungs, of whispers in stone. You wake up more tired than when you lay down. The next morning, the overseer signs you back to the dry vein. The silver's drying up already, veins thinning like the patience of the nobles funding the dig. But he's desperate now, any trace of metal is a miracle worth chasing. You ask if anyone's been sent back to the southern drift. No, he says with a frown. Not since the last team heard strange things. You don't ask what strange means. You already know. Today, your team is down to 3. Olaf is out with a busted ankle, slipped on moss near the tool shed. You feel a tiny, guilty relief. He kept that coin from the relic box. Maybe the mine noticed. You're joined by Beat again and a newcomer, Unri, a pale man with eyes too bright and fingers stained with ink. Scribe, he explains. Broke my quill. Now I dig. You wonder what horrible twist of luck brought a man from the parish books to the pit. But you say nothing. Everyone in the mine is running from something. The digging today is hard, stone tougher than usual, like the earth's clenching around the last dregs of silver. Your pick bounces back with each strike. Your palms blister anew. Beat hums under his breath, an old funeral tune. You say nothing. Around midday, Unri strikes something that doesn't sound like rock. Not exactly. It's hollow. He calls you over, eyes wide. You clear the space and find wood. A wooden wall. Not a beam, not a support. A door. Sealed, reinforced, ancient. The overseer is called. He arrives, snorts, and orders it opened. Storage, he guesses. Maybe old tools. Maybe coin. You start prying. The hinges groan like dying animals. And behind the door, stays. Leading down. Everyone goes quiet. This isn't normal. Minds go sideways, not deeper, not without cause. The stairs are stone, wet and mossy, and vanish into darkness. The overseer, who has never met a mystery he didn't poke with a stick, orders you to explore. Torch in hand, you descend first. The stairs spiral. Down, down, into a part of the mine untouched by recent work. The walls change here, rougher, hand-dug, but with strange patterns scratched into the stone. Curves, spirals, symbols like coiled snakes or eyes with too many lashes. You feel cold. At the bottom, you find a chamber. Circular. Carved. Bones litter the floor, too many to count. Some human, some not. And in the center, a stone pedestal holding a silver circlet, tarnished black, and shaped like a coiled dragon. It pulses with condensation. Beat whispers, no, Unri mutters a prayer. You reach out. The overseer barks from behind you, take it. You hesitate. Every part of your body says don't. But your hands, filthy and calloused, obey orders more than instincts now. You lift the circlet. The moment you do, something changes. The air shifts. Like the mine itself just took a breath. You rush back up the stairs, the others behind you, the overseer grinning like a man who's just stolen from a tomb and thinks he'll get away with it. By the time you reach the surface, the sky is dark. Not night. Clouds. Thick, sudden, unnatural. Rain begins, not water, but ash. Tiny flakes of grey drifting like burnt paper. The mine creaks. Not the wood. The earth. It groans beneath your feet like something waking up. You drop the circlet. It hits the ground with a sound like a bell underwater. You leave it there. That night, the storm howls outside your cottage. Lightning dances too close to the mine's entrance. You sit by the hearth, journal in hand, writing down everything. Your wife reads it over your shoulder and says only, we should leave. You nod. But you don't pack. Because tomorrow you know where you'll be. Deep underground. Listening. You return to the mine before sunrise, the sky a sickly blend of purple and grey. The storm passed in the night, but it didn't go quietly. Trees are down, fences scattered like toothpicks, and something's killed 3 chickens behind the tavern, no blood, just vanished. You pretend not to hear the whispers. Not today. At the mine entrance, the circlet still lies where you dropped it, glistening with dew. No one's touched it. Even the overseer avoided it, though he claims he was waiting for the church to inspect. Likely story. He's not fool enough to carry a cursed crown twice in the same week. The church arrives not long after you. A priest, tall and pale, flanked by 2 acolytes holding censers that belch out sweet-smelling smoke. He lifts the circlet delicately with tongs and places it in a velvet-lined chest. His hands don't shake, but his eyes don't blink either. He says nothing, only nods and walks back the way he came. Once they're gone, the overseer claps and announces a new dig. Not in the southern drift. Not in the old shaft. Somewhere new. He calls it the depth line. No one cheers. Your crew today includes Unri again, now quiet, twitchy, scribbling constantly in a small notebook, as well as Beat and an older man named Raymond, who once lost 3 toes to frostbite and insists on telling everyone at least twice a day. You descend together. The depth line is freshly dug, narrow, and smells of fresh-cut stone and anxiety. The air is cold, unnaturally so. Your candle won't stay lit for more than 10 minutes at a time. Damp, the overseer mutters. Needs more airflow. You mutter something too, but not out loud. The digging is slow. The rock is strange, soft in some places, like hardened clay, then suddenly jagged like broken teeth. You uncover veins of odd minerals, green flecks, purplish stone, nothing you've seen before. Unri makes frantic sketches. Raymond mutters about cursed ore. Midway through the shift, Beat uncovers something buried shallowly under a pile of dust and sediment. A face. Not a body, just a carved face, weathered and cracked, emerging from the rock like it's pushing outward. It's not human. Too long. Too wide. Its mouth open in a scream, or maybe a song. Eyes shaped like teardrops pointing the wrong way. You all stare. Then cover it again. You don't tell the overseer. Some things are better left buried. That night, you dream again. You're underground, as always. But the tunnels aren't made of stone anymore. They breathe. Their walls pulse with veins of light. Something whispers your name, not once, not loudly, but again and again. You try to wake up. You can't. You finally jerk awake, gasping, soaked in sweat. The room is dark. The fire's gone cold. Your wife is still asleep, curled like a question mark. The next morning, you find footprints outside your cottage. Bare. Lodge. Heading toward the mine. You don't follow them. But you go to work anyway. At the shaft, things are wrong. The timbers are cracking despite being new. Water leaks where no vein runs. Tools go missing, then reappear in places no one remembers leaving them. Someone finds a pickaxe half melted, like it sat in a forge, though the forge hasn't been lit in weeks. Henri stops writing. He says the pages turn on their own now. Raymond won't enter the depth line anymore. The rocks blink, he says. Twice. Then they forget you. You and Beat continue the dig. Not out of courage, because you can't afford not to. You still owe the baker 2 weeks' bread, and your youngest needs new boots before winter. That day, the depth line deepens. You reach a wide cavern, partially natural, with high ceilings and long, winding ridges that feel grown, not formed. You notice something odd, tiny handprints in the dust. Child-sized. Too many. All leading toward the wall. You stop working. Beat whispers, "This isn't silver anymore. This is something else." You agree. But you keep digging. Because the mind doesn't care if you're afraid. It only cares if you stop. You're back in the depth line the next morning, though every fiber of your being begs you not to be. Your fingers twitch with the memory of yesterday's handprints. You told yourself it was a trick of the light. A shift in the dust. A prank, maybe. But your dreams don't agree. They've taken on a new consistency, wet, echoing, filled with shapes that don't make sense. The overseer is unusually chipper. "New chamber, lads," he announces, arms wide like he's presenting a feast instead of a hole. "Big one. Could be the main vein." You exchange looks with Beat and Henri. No one smiles. Down in the shaft, the air is warmer today. Too warm. Like the earth has a fever. Your candle burns faster, the flame trembling even when there's no draft. The wooden beams creak above your head, not under pressure, but like they're stretching, yawning after a long sleep. The new chamber is massive. It's not natural, but it's not carved either. The walls ripple in ways stone shouldn't. They glint, not silver, not gold, but something darker. Almost like hematite, but alive. Like it watches. You set to work with the others, chipping slowly. Every strike echoes too long, bouncing off the walls like you're inside a bell. Unri tries to draw the patterns in the rock but gives up. They shift, he mutters. They keep shifting. The deeper you dig, the weirder it gets. Raymond is gone now. Didn't show up for work. When someone went to his shack, they found his boots, still warm, and his pickaxe sitting upright in the center of the room. That's all. The overseer shrugs. Drunk, probably. Or run off. But you know better. Around midday, Beat cuts into a patch of stone that splits open like a wound. Behind it, a tunnel. Narrow. Twisting. Carved, but not by hands shaped like yours. It's lined with those same handprints, now clearly visible in the candlelight. Unri refuses to go in. The overseer doesn't care. We're paid to dig. So dig. You go first. It's tight. The ceiling brushes your shoulders. Your boots slide on the damp stone. The air hums, just barely, like distant singing you can't quite hear. You press on. The tunnel opens into a chamber so small, it barely fits 2 men. In the center, a pool. Perfectly round. Water blacker than anything you've ever seen. You drop a pebble in. No ripple. No sound. It just vanishes. You back out slowly, feeling your heartbeat in your throat. Beat follows, eyes wide, muttering a prayer in Breton under his breath. Neither of you says a word until you're back in the main tunnel. The rest of the day passes in surreal silence. No one speaks. No one hums. Even the overseer grows quiet. You all just work, like ants burrowing into a hornet's nest. That night, Unri shows up at your cottage. He's pale, trembling, his notebook clutched in shaking hands. It's writing back, he says. The words, they're not mine anymore. You open the book. The pages are filled with symbols. Spirals. Eyes. Teeth. All inked in a dark rust color that you pray is just old pigment. Unri leaves without another word. You burn the page you tore out. You don't sleep. The next morning, a message is posted on the mine gate, work delayed. Collapse risk. You know better. You go anyway. Inside, the depth line is different. The walls are smooth now. Too smooth. The tools don't scrape anymore. They glide. Like the stone wants you deeper. You find Beat kneeling at the pool, hands clasped, lips moving. Praying. Or speaking. You're not sure what language he's using. It's not Breton. Not Latin. He looks up at you and smiles. And his eyes are wrong. Too black. Too wide. You back away. You don't return to the depth line. That evening, you take your wife aside and tell her you want to leave. Go north. Somewhere without mines. Somewhere with fields, or sea air, or just dirt that doesn't hum when you touch it. She nods. She's already packed. That night, the mine sings. You hear it from your cottage. A deep, long tone. Beautiful. Terrifying. You don't sleep. You watch the door. And wait for morning. You rise before dawn, not because you have to, but because sleep no longer feels like a safe place. Dreams used to be an escape. Now they're just rehearsals for something worse. Something coming. You and your wife move quickly, quietly. She wraps the baby in layers of wool. Your older boy clutches the wooden horse you carved him last winter, the tail long since chewed off. You don't take much, just food, tools, and your father's journal. The silver coin stays hidden in the wall. You no longer trust metal that comes from underground. Outside, the sky is slate gray. The village sleeps, mostly. Except for a few others. Willem from 2 doors down. Elsa the baker's daughter. People who, like you, have heard the mine singing and decided not to wait for the next verse. They nod as you pass, silent agreement in every eye. You head north. Away from the hills. Away from the mine. But not fast enough. By midday, a sound rolls across the valley. A low, rumbling note, like the earth itself has cleared its throat. Birds scatter. Trees shudder. Your son begins to cry, not because of the noise, but because you are now running, and he has never seen you run before. You don't stop until the sound fades. You make camp in the woods. It's cold. The fire takes forever to catch. You sit wrapped in a blanket, watching your wife hold the baby and whisper lullabies in a voice thinner than usual. You read more of your father's journal. The entries near the end are different. The tunnels are deeper now. Not by our design. I saw eyes in the stone. They blinked. The overseer says dig. The stone says stop. You turn the page and find a sketch. It's the pool. The same one you saw with Beat. And beneath it, written in jagged script, some silver bleeds. Some remembers. You close the journal. The fire crackles. You don't sleep. The next morning, you decide to send your family further north. To her cousin's village. Safer, maybe. You'll stay behind. Just for a few days. Someone has to warn the others. Or at least see if Beat still speaks like a man. Your wife doesn't argue. She just kisses your cheek and places a hand on your chest for a moment longer than usual. You return to the village. It's quieter than it should be. You pass empty homes. Doors open. Chairs overturned. No signs of struggle, just absence. You knock on Willem's door. No answer. You check the tavern. Abandoned. A tankard still half full, as if the drinker simply evaporated mid-sip. You reach the mine by mid-afternoon. It's changed. The entrance is wider. Not from work. From shifting. The earth has pulled apart like lips opening for a song. The timbers are gone. The cart tracks twisted. It looks less like a mine now and more like a throat. You descend. Not because you're brave. Because you need to understand. The depth line is colder than before. The walls pulse subtly, like a slow heartbeat. The tunnel seems to know you. It guides you. You reach the pool without needing to check your turns. It's larger now. Still black. Still still. You hear singing again. Not from above. From below. Beneath the water. You step closer. Something moves in the reflection. Not you. You look up. No one's there. You look back down. The reflection smiles. You fall backward, heart pounding, gasping like you've just escaped drowning. You crawl away, scraping your hands on the slick stone, and as you stumble into the main chamber, you hear someone behind you. Leaving already? It's Beat. Or what's left of him. His body's the same. But his voice, it echoes too much. Like he's speaking through stone. His eyes are still too black. Too wide. You shouldn't have come back, he says. It remembers you. You run. You don't remember how you get out. Only that the sky is darker than it should be. That the birds are gone. That your hands are bleeding. That you don't hear the singing anymore. You find one other person on the road, a boy, no older than 10, with soot on his face and a pickaxe too big for his hands. He doesn't speak. You take his hand, and together you walk toward the edge of the forest. Toward a place where the ground doesn't breathe. Not yet. The road north curves through fields gone fallow and forests still whispering with the last breath of autumn. Leaves crunch underfoot. Wind tugs at your cloak like a needy child. The boy says nothing. He just walks, his eyes scanning the trees like he expects them to move. You don't speak either. Not about the mine. Not about Beat. Not about the reflection that smiled first. The farther you walk, the quieter the world becomes. No birds. No insects. Even your footfalls seem muffled, as if the earth is listening but not quite willing to respond. By midday, you reach a fork in the road. One path leads to your wife's cousin's village, a day's walk, maybe less. The other curves back toward the mountain pass, a shortcut through the old woods. You hesitate. The pass is faster. Riskier, sure. But something in your chest itches with urgency. Like you're being timed. You choose the pass. The forest swallows you both within minutes. Twisting trees lean inward. Roots claw through the dirt like desperate hands. You recognize none of the plants, moss too blue, bark too smooth, mushrooms shaped like coiled horns. You keep walking. The boy starts humming. A tune you've never heard. Low, soft, almost tuneless. It's not a children's song. It's not joyful. It loops in a way that feels recursive, like a spiral drawn in sound. You don't tell him to stop. Because somehow it makes you feel safer. Midway through the pass, you find a structure. Not a cottage. Not a shrine. A ruin, stone and ash, collapsed long ago. But the doorway still stands. Within it, etched on every surface, are the same markings you saw in the mine. Spirals. Eyes. A twisted, jagged sun with too many rays. The boy walks inside. You hesitate. He kneels beside a slab, brushes away moss, and reveals a carving. It's a miner. Candle in hand. Staring into a pool. You step closer. There's writing beneath the image, worn almost smooth. You trace it with your fingers. Beware what listens. A gust of wind scatters ash into your face. When you open your eyes, the boy is gone. Panic flares in your chest. You call out. Once. Twice. No answer. You search the ruins. Nothing. Then you hear it. Not footsteps. Dripping. Not from rain. From stone. You look down. The floor is wet. You back out of the structure, heart racing, and spin around, The boy is standing outside, watching you. He tilts his head. "You found it," he says. You want to ask what he means, but your mouth feels full of stone. He turns and walks away. You follow, legs shaky, senses fraying. By evening, you reach a ridge overlooking a wide valley. Smoke curls from chimneys in the distance. The village. Safe. Ordinary. Still in one piece. You feel something like hope. At the edge of the woods, the boy stops. "This is where I stop," he says. You frown. "Why?" He shrugs. "I'm not supposed to leave the road." You look around. No signs. No markers. Just the woods behind and the path ahead. "You'll find them," he adds. "But you'll have to tell them." You nod slowly. Then he walks back the way you came. And you don't stop him. The village welcomes you with cautious warmth. A place untouched by the mind's pull. Chickens cluck. Children play. There's laughter. Firelight. Ale. No one knows your name. You rent a cot in the corner of the tavern. Collapse into it like a man escaping gravity. And for the first time in weeks, you sleep without dreaming. Until the song returns. This time, it's not coming from the mine. It's coming from the boy. He stands at the foot of your bed, mouth closed, but the song echoes all the same. "You're marked," he says. "It's not done with you." Then he vanishes. You wake gasping. Outside, the sun is rising. And the earth is humming. You stay in the village. At first, people are kind. Curious. You're the tired man with the haunted eyes and a polite wife who sews well and keeps to herself. Your son quickly finds other children to chase through the fields, and even your baby begins to sleep through the night again. But you don't sleep much. You try, of course. You lie in bed listening to the wind push against the shutters, the fire crackle in the hearth, your wife breathing softly beside you. But under it all, beneath every quiet moment, there's that hum. That rhythm. The same one the mine used to pulse with. The same one the boy sang before vanishing into the trees. You start marking the days since you left. On a small scrap of parchment, you draw tiny lines, one for each morning you don't wake screaming. There aren't many. The dreams return, not with thunder but with stillness. You stand in a tunnel made of nothing but breath. The air holds you in place. The walls shift. Eyes open, then shut. You reach for your pick, but it's not a tool anymore. It's a key. You don't want to know what it opens. You meet with the village steward, offer to help with repairs, wood cutting, anything that keeps you above ground. He's skeptical. You look sick, he says. Got ghosts on your heels. You don't argue. You help fix a fence. Carry buckets from the well. Chop wood until your hands blister all over again. At night, you pace. You check on your children. You reread your father's journal. Every page seems to breathe now. Then, on the 12th day, someone else arrives. A cart rolls in, led by 2 donkeys and a gaunt man with coal streaks on his face. He's one of yours. From the old village. You recognize him, Marcus, a smelter. Not a miner, but close enough to have heard the mine sing. He doesn't speak for a long time. Then, over watered beer and crusty bread, he finally does. "It's still open," he whispers. "The mine." You nod. "Of course it is. But no one goes in," he adds. "Not anymore. Not since," he trails off. "Since it changed." He describes how the tunnels shifted overnight. How the depth line expanded without digging. How the overseer disappeared one morning, left his boots and lantern behind. How the villagers began to vanish one by one, always at night. No struggle. Just silence. No footprints. No signs. "They said it wanted names," he mutters. "Real names. That's why it took Beat first. He carved his name into the beam near the pool." You feel cold. That night, your wife finds you by the fire, holding your son's wooden horse. The tail's gone again, gnawed off, this time by the baby. It makes you smile. For a second. She sits beside you. You want to go back, don't you? You don't answer. Because you do. Not because you miss it. Not because of silver. But because something came with you. Something unfinished. You spend the next day preparing. You repack your satchel with food, a lantern, rope, the journal. You find your old pick buried beneath a pile of tools by the smithy. The head is still chipped. The handle, familiar. You tell your wife where you're going. She doesn't ask why. She only says, "Don't let it take your name." You promise. You leave at dawn. The forest is different now. The trees lean further inward. The moss glows faintly at the base of trunks. The birds are still gone. You pass the ruins again. The doorway still stands. The carving of the miner now has eyes. You didn't remember it having eyes. You pass the fork. Take the long road this time. No shortcuts. When you reach the mine, you stop just shy of the entrance. It's wider. No longer like a throat. Now it's an eye. Watching. You step inside. The darkness rushes to greet you. It knows your name. The air inside the mine hasn't changed. It's still damp, still thick, still clings to your skin like grief. But something deeper is different. It's as if the mine has grown organs, begun to breathe not just in rhythm, but with purpose. Your lantern throws a weak circle of light that seems more decorative than functional. Every surface absorbs it like thirst. The wooden supports are gone. In their place are arches formed from the stone itself, elegant, symmetrical, far too perfect for pickaxes and hammers. You didn't carve this. No one did. You descend through familiar tunnels made unfamiliar, past the old dry vein, now blocked with smooth stone, seamless as glass. You pass the broken shaft where Lionel died. Someone stacked stones there, like a cairn. You didn't do that. Neither did anyone you knew. And yet, it's there. As you reach the depth line, the changes become stark. No more timbers. No more rope. No more suit. Just hallways, polished and wet, like the inside of a shell. Footsteps no longer echo. They're swallowed. The hum is louder now, and more distinct, no longer a vibration, but a tune. It twists around you, slippery and persistent, like a song hummed by someone standing just behind your shoulder. You find a familiar marker, a notch in the wall you once carved with Geraint during a bet. You remember him losing, cursing you, buying the next round at the tavern. You touch the notch. It's warm. Not sun-warmed. Not geothermal. Skin warm. You flinch, but don't stop. You can't now. The mind narrows, then expands, suddenly, shockingly. You enter the chamber where the pool waited. But the pool is gone. In its place, a pillar of stone. Slick. Veined with silver that pulses faintly in time with your breath. It's not standing. It's growing, from the floor, upward, spiraling. Atop the pillar, the circlet. The same one the priest took. The one the church locked away in velvet and steel. Somehow, impossibly, it's back. You step closer. The humming stops. And something speaks. Not aloud. Not in words. It speaks through your spine, through the marrow of your bones. Through memory and fear. It says, you heard us. You left. You returned. You tremble. You do not nod. You do not run. It continues, you brought light. You brought names. You dug too deep. So we remember. The pillar pulses once, and the room responds. Like lungs filling. Walls shift. Shapes emerge. Faces. Familiar and not. Lionel. Beat. Your father. None of them blink. None of them breathe. They are not ghosts. They are impressions. Echoes. Stone carved in grief. You speak. Finally. What are you? Silence. Then, we are what the earth forgot. What the miners left behind. What the names carried. You drop your pick. It lands with no sound. You step back, the edges of the chamber rippling slightly as if underwater. You try to remember the exit, but the path is gone. Not blocked. Gone. You close your eyes. And you listen. The song returns, gentler now. A lullaby. It carries something with it. Not words. Not thoughts. A memory. You're a boy again. Your father's voice in the tunnel. His hand on your shoulder. The flicker of a lantern. His laugh. Then the song shifts. You're older. Carrying your son. His first trip to the shaft mouth. He asks what the mind sounds like. You tell him it hums when it's sleeping. Now you understand. The mine was never asleep. It was waiting. You speak again. I'm not here to dig. The air stills. I'm here to end it. The pillar glows. Silver veins pulse faster. You take the circlet in your hands. It's warm. It's breathing. You don't know how you know, but you do. You have to bury it. Not in dirt. In silence. In memory. You hold it close. And the tunnel collapses. Not violently. Just closes. Darkness folds around you like a blanket. You expect fear. But you feel calm. The circlet melts in your grip. Turns to dust. To silver mist. To silence. And you speak your name aloud. One last time. The mind listens. And lets you go. You wake on the forest path. The sun is rising. Your satchel is gone, but the weight in your chest has lifted. You walk toward the village, toward your family, toward light. You reach the village just after midday, your boots caked with mud, your clothes torn in places you don't remember tearing. But you're alive. More alive than you've felt in weeks, months, maybe ever. The weight in your bones, gone. The hum in your ears, silent. The villagers spot you from the fields. They wave, unsure. You must look like a man who's crawled through a storm backwards. Which, in a way, you have. Your wife runs to meet you, baby in arms, son trailing behind. When she reaches you, she doesn't ask what happened. She just pulls you close, pressing her forehead to yours. The baby squirms between you, babbling nonsense. Your son hugs your leg, whispering, "I knew you'd come back." That night, you sit by the hearth, a bowl of stew in hand, your family around you. For the first time in recent memory, your hands aren't shaking. The journal lies beside you, closed. Not locked. Just resting. You sleep deeply. No dreams. No humming. No singing. You spend the next few days in quiet rhythm. Mending tools, helping repair a collapsed barn, playing with your children. The boy with the wooden horse has built a stable now, 3 stones and a bit of stick fence. He insists you help him feed it grass. Every evening, you look out at the distant woods. You half expect to see Beat, or the boy with the coal-smeared face, or the priest with his velvet box. But you see only trees, until the messenger arrives. He comes at dawn, wrapped in a dark cloak, his face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He rides a grey horse with eyes too white. You hear him before you see him, the hooves don't make noise, but the air bends oddly around his approach, like heat off stone. He stops at the village square. Dismounts. Speaks not to the steward, but directly to you. "You held it," he says, voice rough as slate. You wore the silence. You nod. He hands you a scroll, sealed with wax the color of dried blood. "The church is calling," he says. They know. You take the scroll. Break the seal. It's not a summons. It's a map. A route across the kingdom, marked with symbols. Churches, abbeys, monasteries. But not for worship. For sealing. There are more like the circlet. More pieces. Hidden. Lost. Some sleeping. Some not. You've been marked as a bearer. A walker between. The mind didn't just remember you, it passed something on. You're not alone. You ask the messenger, "Why me?" He tilts his head. "Because you walked out. And the mind let you." Then he turns and rides away. The horse doesn't leave tracks. You spend the night thinking. Pacing. Staring at the map. You talk to your wife. She listens. As always. She doesn't ask you to stay. But she doesn't let you go easily either. "I'll be back," you promise. Before the frost. She hands you the journal. "Take your father with you." Your son insists you carry the wooden horse. "For luck," he says. You don't laugh. Because you believe him. At dawn, you set out. Not toward a mine. but toward the next silence. Because something is waking. And you remember the humming. And you know it's only the first verse. Your journey takes you across ridges and valleys you never knew existed. Villages half forgotten by trade routes. Forests so dense even the birds whisper. You follow the map the messenger gave you, its symbols etched like scars across the parchment. It feels less like a guide and more like a warning. The first sight is an old abbey on the edge of a salt marsh. You arrive at dusk. The bell tower leans like it's bowing to the swamp. No sounds, no birds, just the creak of ropes and the scent of brine. A monk meets you at the gate. He's silent, but his eyes hold the same distant shimmer you've seen before, in beat, in in your own reflection. He leads you to a room beneath the altar. A crypt, technically. But not for the dead. For containment. There, on a stone slab, lies another relic. Not a circlet this time. A cube, iron-bound, sides etched with spirals and eyes. You feel it before you see it, heatless, breathless, pulsing. The monk gestures. You place your hand on it. And immediately, you see the mine. Not your mine. Another. Deeper. Older. You're standing in it, pick in hand, surrounded by torchlight that flickers wrong. Shapes move in the stone. Not through it. As it. You hear names whispered, some you recognize, most you don't. You pull your hand away. The monk nods, satisfied. He seals the cube in a wax-lined box and presses a sigil into the lock. You ask him, what are these things? He writes on a slate, memories. Anchors. Whispers that forgot how to die. You stay the night in the abbey. You don't sleep. Instead, you copy the symbols from the cube into your journal. One of them matches something your father scribbled long ago, barely legible in the margins, same mark near Mornasia shaft. Miner's gone mad. Your next destination is Mornasia. You head south through frost-covered farmland. The world feels paused, like the seasons are waiting to see what you'll do next. You pass a village where the wells have gone dry. The people drink melted frost and speak in clipped tones. You don't stay long. When you reach Mornasia, you understand why your father never returned. The mine is still open. But no one guards it. No one works it. The shaft stands like a wound, rimmed with black mold and salt crystals. The wood has petrified. The air around it hums, faintly, but wrong. Like the pitch is cracked. You descend. The ladder is half rotten. Rungs break beneath your boots. You fall once, land hard, and limp the rest of the way. At the bottom, you find silence. Too complete. Even your breath seems hesitant. The walls of the shaft are covered in carvings, spirals, teeth, tongues. But these are rushed, desperate, as if someone tried to communicate while drowning. You find bones, tools, scraps of prayer. And in the center of the chamber, a mirror. Framed in iron. Clouded. But pulsing faintly with a silver sheen. You approach. Your reflection looks back. Then tilts its head in the wrong direction. You don't flinch. You reach forward. And the surface ripples. This time, there's no vision. Only a voice. Yours. But older. Weary. It says, "This isn't about minds." It never was. You stagger back. Behind you, the walls have shifted. You see your father's mark again, his initials carved beside a crude drawing of you as a child. He was here. He left a trace. And something left him alone. You understand. You leave the mirror. You don't look back. The path up is harder. But you make it. On the surface, snow has begun to fall. Light at first. Then heavy. You mark the location on your map with a cross. 2 relics down. The third site waits on the coast. You don't rest. You walk. And behind you, in the dark places of the earth, something watches and remembers your name. The road to the coast is long, winding through hills now glazed with snow. The frost coats everything, branches like brittle bones, rivers like glass ribbons. Each morning, you wake with your fingers numb, your breath misting thick into the air like smoke. But you walk. Because the map pulls you forward. Because you've begun to feel it again, the pressure. Not in your head. Not even in your heart. In the earth beneath your feet. The third relic waits in a monastery called Saint's Hollow, perched on a cliff that leans too far over a churning grey sea. The monks who live there are not quite monks, not priests, not soldiers, not scribes. Watchers. Keepers. You're welcomed with silence. They know who you are. Or maybe they just know what follows you. Inside the monastery, everything is made of stone. Even the beds. Even the warmth feels carved. You're taken to the reliquary chamber, more a vault than a sanctuary. Cold metal doors, iron-bound and lined with salt. The floor is chalked with sigils that twist if you look too long. The relic is sealed in glass. A bell. Small, delicate, silver. But wrong. You see it vibrate, ever so slightly, despite the stillness. The abbot gestures for you to come closer. He says, "It's not to be rung." You nod. He tells you the bell was once used to bless new tunnels, to keep the earth listening and asleep. But one day, it rang on its own. And something woke. Since then, it's been locked away. You ask to touch it. The abbot hesitates, then nods. You place your hand against the glass. And suddenly, you are inside the mine again. Not yours, but one like it. A deeper one. You're not alone. You hear breathing. Not yours. And a voice. A child's voice. It says, "You're almost done." Then the bell rings. Just once. A chime that feels like metal scraping bone. You recoil. Gasping. But you're still in the vault. The abbot is staring at you, his face pale. It called to something, he mutters. Far below. You need to leave. You don't argue. That night, the sea howls. The waves crash higher than the cliffs. The walls groan. And from somewhere beneath the floor, a low echo, like a song heard through water. You leave before dawn. The abbot presses a token into your hand. A small disc, carved with the sigils from the floor. It won't stop them, he says. But it might remind them that you remember. You nod. You head east. The final mark on the map isn't a mine. It's a village. Your village. Where it all began. You return home. To your wife. Your children. Your bed. The fire still burns in the hearth, but the air smells faintly of stone. You don't tell them everything. Just enough. You show your son the bell drawing. You don't tell him what it does. He looks at it and says, "It's like your voice when you read." And somehow, that terrifies you more than anything else. That night, the dreams return. But this time, they're not of tunnels. They're of the sea. Of the bell. Of a shape beneath the waves, coiled and waiting. You wake with salt on your lips. The journal lies open beside you. Your father's final entry reads, "The earth doesn't forget. It waits." You add your own beneath it, then let it wait alone. And in the distance, just for a moment, the bell rings again. You spend the next few days trying to pretend you're someone else. Someone who chops wood and fixes fences and doesn't wake up in a sweat after dreams of bells and tunnels that breathe. Your children help, their laughter is disarmingly normal. Your wife, too, grounds you in small ways. A hand on your shoulder. A warm bowl of stew. A glance that says, "You're still here." But the earth knows better. It begins with vibrations, subtle at first. Your boots tremble when you cross the threshold into your cottage. The water in the well ripples, even on still mornings. Birds circle high above the village but never land. The humming is back. Faint. But familiar. You check the journal. Your father's notes aren't just records. They're warnings. There's a pattern to the relics, each one meant to tether something. Contain. Divert. Mute. The circlet. The cube. The mirror. The bell. Together, they form a shape. Not a symbol. A lock. Which means something was meant to stay sealed. And you've just touched all 4 keys. You begin seeing signs in the village, children drawing spirals in the dirt without knowing why. Elders waking with stone dust under their nails. A goat born with a jaw that doesn't quite close, chewing sideways like it's gnawing on silence. The earth is remembering. You try to leave again. To walk north. East. Anywhere. But the road bends. Literally. Paths you've taken dozens of times twist back toward the mine. Trees lean to funnel you. You walk in circles even when the sky is clear. The mind doesn't just remember you now. It wants you. And one morning, you wake to find your son gone. Panic sets in like wildfire. You check the barn, the neighbor's cottage, the stream where he collects frogs. Nothing. Then you see them. Footprints. Small. Bare. Leading toward the woods. You follow. The trees are silent now. Even the wind's held its breath. You find him at the mine entrance. Standing perfectly still. Not scared. Just waiting. He looks at you and says, "It's almost ready." You don't ask what. Because you already know. The mine has called the pieces home. And it will not let go until they are returned. Your son takes your hand. His fingers are ice. Together, you step inside. The mine is no longer stone. It's grown. Ribbed walls. A floor that feels spongy beneath your boots. Breathing. And it's humming louder now. A melody. low and ancient. You reach the depth line, though it's changed. No pool, no pillar, no reflection, just a chamber. And in the center, a heart. Not a metaphor, a real heart. Enormous, wet, silver-veined, beating slowly. The relics pulse in your pack, calling to it. Responding. Your son looks up at you. "We finish it," he says. You hesitate, then nod. One by one, you place the relics around the heart. The circlet, the cube, the mirror, the bell. Each one sinks into the earth as if the mind exhales them into place. The heart beats faster. You feel it in your spine, in your teeth, in your name. Your son whispers, it remembers. The chamber begins to close. Stone folds inward. You lift your son, hold him tight, and speak aloud the last line from your father's journal. "We dug too deep. Let this be enough." The light fades. The mind sighs. And everything is still. You wake at the village edge. Alone. The mine is sealed. No entrance. No stone. Just grass. Your son sleeps beside you, curled in your coat. And the earth is silent. For now. Life resumes, at least on the surface. You mend your roof before the first snow sets in. Your wife plants garlic beside the cottage. Your children chase chickens with a joy that doesn't know what you've seen. The mine is gone, no tunnel, no timber, no shaft. Just a patch of moss-covered earth that looks older than time itself. But nothing is ever truly over. You still hear it sometimes. Not in the ground, but in the space between things. In the moment before a log splits under your axe. In the pause between thunder and rain. A low resonance, like a bell being rung deep underwater. You record everything now. Your father's journal has become yours. Every sign, every whisper, every strange dream written down. Not to understand, but to remember. Because forgetting is what let it grow in the first place. Others begin arriving. Travelers. Wanderers. Men and women with eyes that scan the horizon as if expecting it to blink. They ask about mines. About old relics. About tunnels that sing. You don't answer directly, but you hand them a copy of your map. And you mark the places that are still warm. One day, you find a stone in your garden. Small. Smooth. Etched with a spiral. You didn't put it there. Your wife swears she didn't either. You bury it. The next morning, it's back. You keep it this time. Place it on your shelf beside the wooden horse, now worn down to a nub. And you wait. One winter's night, you hear a knock on the door. You open it to find no one there. Only footprints. Small. Bare. Leading to the edge of the trees. You don't follow. You build a fire instead. And you speak to the flames. You tell them what happened. What was buried. What was awakened. Not because you think the fire listens, but because something always does. And it's better you speak first. Your son begins drawing symbols again. Not eyes. Not spirals. Hands. Reaching upward. You ask what they mean. He says, they're listening. You ask who? He shrugs. And the fire flickers blue. That spring, the rains fall too long. The well overflows. And in the puddles, you see reflections that don't move when you do. Your neighbors begin dreaming of tunnels. You host gatherings in your home. Quiet conversations. Nervous laughter. People pretending they're not afraid of the way the ground hums during storms. One man tells you his fields stopped growing. The soil tastes like copper. A girl says her cat sings in its sleep. You nod. You know. The mine may be sealed, but the silence is restless. And in silence, anything can grow. You write letters. To the church. To the old abbeys. To watchers like you. Some reply. Some don't. But all of them include the same word somewhere. Again. One evening, as you tuck your children into bed, your daughter, barely old enough to speak in full sentences, grabs your wrist and says, "They're under the trees now." You pause. She's already asleep again. The next day, you walk to the woods. Just to look. The trees sway gently. But the ground beneath them is softer than it should be. Warmer. You kneel. Press your hand into the soil. It pulses. Just once. But enough. You don't panic. You don't scream. You stand. And you write it down. Because that's what keepers do. They remember. They warn. They wait. And sometimes they return. Summer comes, but it brings little comfort. The days are long and golden, sure, but the sun feels too distant, like it's watching from behind glass. The wind carries warmth but also whispers, sometimes threading through your hair in ways that make you turn and check if someone is behind you. No one is. Usually. Your wife plants again, this time with beans and rye. She hums more, a defense mechanism perhaps, but it keeps the air inside your home light. Your son no longer draws the symbols, but he stares too long into reflections. Into puddles, windows, polished wood. Your daughter refuses to sleep with her back to the wall. You can't blame her. The ground hasn't trembled since the thaw. But the feel of it, like a coiled snake beneath your feet, has never left. You visit the hill again, the one where the mine used to yawn like a hungry mouth. Now it's nothing but a patch of moss. Nothing blooms there. Nothing dies either. One evening, lightning forks across the sky. No rain follows. Just a tension in the air so thick you could slice it. The next morning, a circle of mushrooms has grown where the well used to stand. You don't touch them. You mark the day in your journal, the ring returns. The church sends another letter. This one sealed in black wax. Inside, a single line, the bindings fail. You understand. Whatever you sealed, whatever the relics locked away, it's still working at the edges, still whispering to the cracks. Time means nothing to it. If it has to wait 100 years, it will. If it has to sing a lullaby through the roots of trees, it will. You take the map out again. The ink has faded in strange places. One of the marks, Saint's Hollow, is no longer visible. You write it back in. The next day, it's gone again. Your son sees you staring at the map. He walks over and places a pebble on the faded spot. To remind it, he says. That night, you hear the bell in your dreams again. But this time, it isn't ringing. It's speaking. A voice like silver shattering underwater. You cannot bury memory. You wake gasping. And decide you need to leave again. Not for long. Just a pilgrimage. A check-in. To see what remains. You kiss your wife goodbye, leave the children sleeping. You tell her, I'll be back before harvest. She just nods. She's stopped asking for promises. Your path leads south to the valley monastery where the cube once Saturday. The road is overgrown, the milestones worn smooth. When you arrive, the gates hang loose on rusted hinges. Inside, silence. The reliquary chamber is cracked. The slab where the cube once lay is broken in two. Something burrowed up. Not down. You kneel and touch the stone. It's warm. And it pulses. The monks are gone. No signs of struggle. No signs at all. You carve a mark beside the entrance before you leave. A spiral. Upside down. A message to anyone else who comes, not safe. On the road back, you see them. Eyes in the tree line. Not glowing. Not human. Just watching. You don't stop walking. Because you've seen what happens when you hesitate. You reach home 2 days later. The moss patch is unchanged. But your daughter greets you at the gate with something in her hand. A feather. Long black. Coated in dust. You ask her where she found it. She points to the roof. No birds, she says. Just the sky. You take it. Place it in your journal. And draw a new mark on the map. Because the sky is listening now. The wind shifts. Not just in temperature or direction, but in tone. It carries messages now. You hear names in the rustle of leaves. Sentences in the creak of branches. Your own name spoken back to you, not whispered, but remembered. Something is spreading. You keep to routine. That's what your father did when things frayed around the edges. You split wood, fix the fence, check the well. But even the well is strange now. Water tastes metallic, and sometimes it reflects light that shouldn't be there. Sunset colors at noon. Moonlight in daylight. Your son wakes screaming one night. He says he saw beneath the village. Not through a crack or tunnel. Through a dream. There's a new chamber, he tells you. And it's filling. You don't ask with what. The next day, your neighbor's cow gives birth to a calf with no eyes. The village healer says it's a punishment. You disagree. It's a warning. You begin carving symbols around your home again. Not to summon. To remind. You trace them into the door frame, the lintels, under the table where your daughter hides when the thunder gets too close. Each mark a thread in a net you hope still holds. The journal grows thick. You've started copying your father's entries, adding margins, sketches, translations. You're not sure who you're writing for. Yourself, your children, the earth. Maybe all three. Because the earth has a memory. And it's organizing itself again. Then the digging returns. Not by human hands. You hear it at night, faint scraping beneath the floorboards. You press your ear to the dirt and hear rhythm. Not claws, not tools. A kind of movement that feels deliberate. You dig a shallow pit behind your house, just to see. You find old bones, not human. You leave them, then seal the hole with salt and ash. The church sends another message. This time, a whisper. A rider who doesn't stop. He tosses the scroll at your feet and gallops on. You open it. The coast is compromised. You feel it before you understand it. The bell. It rang again. You gather your things. Lantern. Salt. Symbols. Your wife touches your shoulder. Not alone, she says. She packs her own satchel. Your son carries the map. You head east. The road is cracked and vine-wrapped. Trees droop like they're listening. The air has weight now. Even the sky feels heavy, as if it's pressing down with expectation. You reach Saints Hollow in silence. The sea is gone. Not dry, gone. The cliff overlooks a void now. A great, dark emptiness that swallows light. You can't see the horizon. Just down. Where the bell tower once stood, only a stalk remains. Something grew in its place. A tower made of silvered roots spiraled skyward, humming faintly. Your son says, it's breathing. You believe him. The relic is gone. So is the seal. The watchers didn't fail. They were absorbed. You don't enter. You draw a spiral on the earth. Then a handprint. Then you pour salt. And you say the names of the lost. All of them. Even the ones you never met. Because the mine is no longer local. It's systemic. It's waking in echoes now, mines, wells, forests, stone. Even memory. Especially memory. On the way back, you see a village that shouldn't exist. A mirror of yours. Same layout. Same well. Same fields. But no people. Only birds. Hundreds of them. All silent. They watch you pass. You don't stop. You arrive home to find your house untouched. But the moss patch is gone. In its place, a circle of stones. Not placed. Grown. Inside the circle lies the feather. It hasn't moved. But it has multiplied. There are 7 now. Arranged like points on a wheel. Your wife says nothing. Your daughter draws a spiral with her toe in the dirt. And hums. Autumn stumbles in, cloaked in rotten shadow. The trees bleed orange, their leaves falling not gently but deliberately, landing in patterns you can't unsee. Spirals. Crosses. Circles. You rake them up, burn them quietly, hoping no one else noticed. But people do notice. Your neighbors grow quieter. Some leave notes and vanish overnight. Others stay, but their eyes don't blink often enough, and their doors stay bolted even in daylight. You understand. Everyone feels it. Like a second heartbeat underfoot. The journal grows heavier with every entry. You've mapped something new. Not places. Times. Each tremor, each unnatural birth, each dream, their dates form a cycle. A pattern your father may have suspected, but never finished tracking. The next peak is soon. very soon. You check the old stones, the ones that grew where the mine once was. They're taller now, narrower. Their tops lean inward, like is straining to hear. In the center, the feathers have turned black. Not just in color, in texture. They pulse when touched. Your daughter stands by them sometimes, silent, watching. You don't call her away, because some part of you suspects she already knows more than you do. One night, a man arrives at your door. Not a messenger, a listener. That's what he calls himself. He wears robes stitched with thread the color of rust and moss. His hands are bare, fingers long, nails cracked like old stone. He doesn't knock, just stands in the yard until you open the door. He smiles, but his eyes don't move. I heard your silence, he says. You offer him a seat, stew, warmth. He accepts all but eats none of it. He talks in riddles. The mine was a gate, he says, but not the only one. He speaks of chambers beneath rivers, altars in limestone, caves that hum like cradles. He names things that never had names before. The relics were not the danger, he says. They were the anchors. And when you moved them, you don't answer? He nods anyway. Before leaving, he places something on your table. A stone, no bigger than your palm, carved with a new mark. A spiral, but open-ended. It's not a lock, he says. It's a question. You don't sleep that night, because in your dreams you hear footsteps under the floor again. But they don't stop this time. They climb. The next morning, your wife tells you she dreamed of the sea returning. But it was upside down. Sky above, water below, and things swimming in both. You decide it's time to go deeper than you ever have. Not into minds, into memory. You reread every page in your father's journal, every margin, every stain. One note near the end catches your eye. Scribbled sideways between entries, names hold, names bind. When it knows your name, it opens. You remember the circlet, how it pulsed when you said your name. You remember the voice in the mine. You heard us. It wasn't speaking to your ears. It was using your identity as a key. You begin a new ritual. Each morning, before sunrise, you whisper false names into the wind. Each night, you write your real name backward into the fire, watch it turn to ash. Your son watches, too. He understands without asking. Then one morning, the moss patch opens. No noise, no light. Just open. A clean hole, round, rimmed with black stone that was never there before. Not dug. Invited. You stand at the edge and listen. No hum, no song, just silence, but not empty. Waiting. You touch the stone. It pulses once, and you whisper, "Not yet." The hole closes. Your daughter smiles in her sleep. Your wife wraps the baby tighter. Your son draws the spiral again, this time with wings. And you prepare, because soon it won't be waiting. It will ask. And when it does, you'll need to decide, do you answer? Or do you seal the gate again? And if so, with what? The final harvest passes in silence. Crops are smaller, tasteless. The apples crumble in your hand like dust-dried parchment. Chickens lay speckled eggs, soft as breath, and your goats refuse to eat anything grown too close to the woods. You do what you can to stretch it. Salt what's left. Hide what must be hidden. Because something is coming. And it smells like copper. The hole doesn't reopen. But it watches. You feel it under your skin now, the way one might feel weather in an old scar. The weight beneath your home grows denser by the hour. The feather stones don't just pulse now, they vibrate with rhythm. Not your heartbeat. Something older. The villagers come to you. Not all at once. Quietly. In twos and threes. Faces tight. Hands wrung. They bring objects, cracked mirrors, rusted coins, dolls with stitched eyes, stones that glow faintly in shadow. Relics, all of them. Unwittingly gathered. And now returned. We didn't know, they say. But they spoke to us. You gather everything in a crate lined with salt and ash. Your wife helps. She doesn't flinch when the objects shift slightly, even without touch. The listener returns. The same one, maybe. Or another. It's hard to tell anymore. They say only this, the anchor is loose. The choice must be made. You ask what choice. They smile. And walk into the woods. The trees do not move. But they lean a little more. You begin your preparations. The journal, your father's, now yours, is copied twice. One stays in the house, sealed behind the hearthstone. The other, you bury under the chicken coop. No one ever checks the chicken coop. You write letters. Short, cryptic, enough to guide. If anyone finds them. And then one night, as frost creeps across the window panes in shapes that look suspiciously like spirals and hands, the humming returns. Not soft this time. It comes as a chord. One note. Deep. Sustained. As if the world has finally taken a breath. And doesn't plan to give it back. The hole in the moss opens again. No warning. Just a new absence where grass should be. Your children wake without prompting. Your son nods solemnly. Your daughter smiles, but her eyes gleam silver in the firelight. You gather your pack. No relics. No salt. Just your name. Because you suspect that's what it wants now. Not silver. Not sacrifice. Not even silence. It wants memory. You descend. The tunnel no longer resembles stone. The walls shimmer with veins that pulse light. Shapes move behind them, limbs and faces and languages that don't use mouths. You descend without steps. The tunnel slopes as if the earth itself has bent into submission. At the bottom, a chamber. No pool. No pillar. No relics. Only a mirror. Perfect. Smooth. Floating. Your reflection smiles first. Then you speak. I know who I am. The mirror ripples. Your voice echoes. I know what I carry. A hand forms in the surface. Yours. But older. Tired. It reaches toward you. You do not flinch. You place your hand against it. It is warm. alive. The humming ceases. And for one breathless moment, everything is still. Then, a pulse. It runs up your arm, through your chest, into your mind. You see every mine, every gate, every whisper, all connected, all waiting, but none opened fully, because none gave their name willingly. Until now, the mirror collapses into mist, into memory, into you. You stagger back. The chamber shakes. The tunnel splits. But not in collapse. In choice. Two paths open. One forward. One back. You turn. And climb. Not because you're finished. But because you understand. The gates will never stay closed forever. But they will listen to those who remember. You emerge into moonlight. The village is whole. The wind is silent. And for the first time in a season, the stars are visible. Your family waits by the hearth. Your daughter sleeps in your wife's arms. Your son holds your journal. He's added a page, a drawing, of a spiral, wings, and a face. Yours. Watching. You take the pen and write one last line before the frost creeps in again. I walked below. I remembered. I returned. And the earth is quiet. The snow arrives quietly, blanketing the village in layers so thick the earth seems finally, blessedly muffled. Your children build towers with the heavy flakes, their laughter floating like smoke over the rooftops. You watch from the doorway, your breath curling in the air, your hand resting on the frame where old protection marks still linger. The mind does not open again. Not in this season. But you feel it. Always. Like a forgotten song tucked into the folds of your coat, always with you, always humming just under your skin. Winter teaches you patience. It forces stillness. You mend boots. Chop wood. Rebind your journal with thicker leather. The second copy, the one buried behind the chicken coop, you dig up, wrap in cloth, and give to your son. He takes it without a word, tucks it beneath his bed. He's already started his own entries. You've peeked. Just names and drawings, mostly. But he sees things. Remembers in ways you never did at his age. You don't know if that's a blessing. Your wife weaves. Not just cloth, she weaves moments. Quiet ones. The smell of soup before snow. The warmth of shared blankets. The hum of lullabies no longer meant to drown out the mine. Your daughter hums them too. But she adds her own endings. Twists the melodies. Spirals them. You've stopped asking questions. The sky this winter is clear more often than it should be. You see stars now. Bright, sharp, impossibly close. One night, you count 7 that form a perfect spiral. You close your eyes. You sleep soundly. But one night, just once, you dream again. You walk through a field of salt. At its center, a bell. Rusted. Silent. You touch it, and it doesn't ring. But a door opens. Not beneath. Above. And you float upward, breathless. Weightless. Before waking in your bed, snow falling soft as ash against the glass. Your son is already awake. He looks at you and says, "It's waiting again." You nod. Of course it is. You add one final note to your journal. It never ends. But we get to pause, to breathe, to prepare. That is enough. And you mean it. For now. The stones around the old moss patch remain standing. The feathers have blown away. No one replaces them. But the wind sounds different now. Softer. Less urgent. You take a walk that morning, tracing the village's edge. The snow crunches underfoot, muffled and crisp. The trees bow under its weight, their branches drawing lines in the white. You find a spiral drawn in snow. Not yours. Not your children's. Just there. You smile. And walk on. Because the earth remembers. But so do you. And sometimes, that's all it needs. The frost thickens on the window, casting soft patterns of light across the floor. You sit near the hearth, the fire low, steady, whispering rather than roaring. The air smells of cedar, wool, and the distant hush of snow. You're wrapped in warmth, not just from blankets or flames, but from something quieter. Something earned. Your journey has ended, for now. The mine, the song, the whispers, they've all quieted. Not vanished, no. But tucked away. And like all stories that linger just beneath the skin, they'll rest until they're called again. Outside, the wind brushes against the house like a lullaby. The trees sway gently, their bare branches tracing arcs across the moonlit sky. Your children sleep, their breaths slow and even. Your wife dreams beside them. The journal lies closed on the table, its weight a comfort now rather than a burden. You lean back. Let your eyes close. Let your breath slow. Let your mind drift. Because you've remembered enough. You've endured enough. And for tonight, at least, the world is quiet. So sleep, brave miner. Sleep deep. Sleep safe. And if the earth sings again, you'll be ready.